2 of the backstory dedicated to our more than 100 subscriber anniversary. Here we go. So, where are we at? Ah, yes. Airsoft origins, politics origins, lightsaber origins. Those are already briefed. Now, down to the backstory parts that defines it all. The one. The one. Yeah, it's called the individual is called the one. And yeah, I'm really good at making titles nowadays. Because, I mean, I do writing. I do 3 writing-based topics after all. So that's only relevant towards how I'm so good at them. Yeah. That's what it's all about. The one that changed it all. The one's not me, obviously, because if the one was me, I wouldn't call it the one. There is always a definition context in every title I use. So who is this one? And what does it have to do with my backstory? Because other than Master Alex, I rarely feature anyone else. Who is the one? And who is he? Or who is she? You never know. I mean, I know, but you guys never know. So to understand the one, you all have to be ready to know that the one has a very large impact on the course of how this channel was shaped. I mean, not directly, indirectly, and also personality traits and all that psychological context. And yes, and the term of this one is very complicated. And I will try to simplify it so you guys will probably understand. And if you guys are the type that don't like to hear love-like stories, then please, I suggest you to just try and evaluate part 1 and perhaps wait until probably I do that other video more about the Eastside Massacre, and I will evaluate more on that. But if you're the one that cannot stand that kind of content, then you know what, if you can't stand sadness, then I understand that, but look out for yourself and wait for another video to come out. Right, now that we have everything in place, who is the one? Of course, I'm not going to tell who the one is, obviously, because it's been 2 to 3 years straight since I've had anything with this one. And this one is basically the one that gave me confidence to music. Sort of, anyways. So basically, I met the one in my music class back then, in my old homeworld. And yeah, this one was basically the spark of my life. And it was the golden age that lasted for no longer than about 2 years or less. And yeah, this one was very interesting. And I usually, most of the time in school, I basically had this kind of close relation with this one. And we basically, every time music class, we usually just sit together, and things would go very, very easily compatible, like in an ideological sense. And I mean, of course, that was before the Eastside Massacre started, about a year before the Eastside Massacre started. So yeah. And basically, when it comes to a conversation, when we tend to talk about school, things get really easy. We're a lot more easier to accept each other and what we think, more easier than anyone else. And the one was, of course, very, very, very open-minded. I mean, much greater than I was. I mean, back then, I don't know about now, but either way, so that happened, and it made me feel a little bit more confidence to music. And you guys probably haven't seen much of music content because I will also be giving it a seat. Just a seat, though. Not the. I'm not gonna be replacing everything like airsoft lightsabers with music. Absolutely not. That goes against the code, the channeling code. my code. No, not media code, my code. Because I set a code on what I make. So yeah, that's it. So in base of music, this one has inspired me to do many things, such as searching for new music across the internet, which is I think any musician would do. Even if you're a rock like me, then of course that's something we still want to do. Explore the internet about music. And yeah, when the one basically whenever it approaches me, I always have this good feeling. And that good feeling, of course, attracted many eyes, and of course, yes, a little bit of shenanigans happened, but it was a good payoff. It was a good payoff, and we were going to the point where we were so close that we felt was like, you know what, I'm gonna cut. I'm readying for the golden age to begin. But of course, in life, not everything goes according to plan because that was about a year later when we started to establish a good foundation of things. The East Side Massacre started, and things get a little bit turmoil. But that wasn't the worst. If you think the East Side Massacre was what caused the one to go a little bit sideways, then you are in absolute mistake. Well, yeah, in some way. But anyways, the real bummer was COVID and ideological circumstances because the one tends to think differently and has different very deep when you take things really deep you're understanding the deep context of any situation you're in, which is good. That's really helpful, but of course it comes at a very 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 momentous cost, and that's exactly what happened to the one, and things got a little bit sideways. And of course, I'm shortening the whole history of the one, so you guys can understand it more easily. So skipping to 2020, where basically things were very shippy, very shitty. I mean, where basically, yeah, nothing was going well. Like literally, I feel like every time I'm doing digital class, I always have to have a throw up bag right next to me. So when I throw up, I can always do that. But luckily, I never threw up. I just used the bag just to like to back up my large amount of textbooks and prepare to burn them in the cage of fire whenever I want to. Just kidding. So anyway, the one was also having that kind of situation, but just a little bit even further extreme than that. But of course, I don't know what it is because if I knew what it is, I would obviously not want to hear it any further. And yeah, and many of my plans, like a lovely boat trip because back in my homeworld, anything was possible. Like a lot easier because we were more stuck to the sea. So if you want to use a boat or do anything on boats, then that would be a lot easier. And yeah, that so-called boat activity basically got cancelled, and I feel like an absolute failure because literally I was promising the one for this moment, and basically the one said it was alright, it wasn't my fault, and I was like, oh thanks, but never mind. I just like, ah shit. The one is probably gonna feel like I was an absolute dummy. It's like, I mean, I can't predict the future back then. My abilities hadn't enhanced that far, but yeah, everyone has a limitation in power. So yeah, and anyways, things went even further down, furthermore than that. Basically, all long-term plans got absolutely screwed to the ground, and basically the one basically started to develop like a lot of sophisticated mental difficulties along the way, and basically like like if you know about me, like some depression and all those, like you obviously know it's very hard, and it's not like taking an antibiotic will help in any way. That's obviously not going to work. And yes, these usually last for many years, and it usually leads to many very, very unhealthy outcomes. So basically, I was trying to help, provide like positive and kind advice. And yeah, I did everything I could. Like asked specialists for help as well. Like even to the point where I nearly called a therapist. But of course, in international law, you're not allowed to get a therapist until the age of 18, which I don't know why the fuck not. I mean, you could get a hotline, but yeah, those contacts don't really last very long. So, anyways, I tried to help out, and there was time for about a month, a few months before I left my homeworld for the UK, and things were starting to turn to improve. You know, the one basically started to come back to classes more frequently, and yeah, more social. But then that's when it happened. Now this is gonna be an absolute BLLCKS. I'm not gonna say the actual word. No, I'm not gonna do that. Where basically the one was shitting on my face the whole time. Like shitting me, like the whole illness thing. I mean, yes, like kind of, but that whole thing was under control the whole damn time. So basically, it was all fake. Like honestly saying, it was all fake. And basically, the whole close relation I had with the one was very very like just for it was just toying around, like literally. I mean, I understand like some individuals with mental difficulties tend to do that, but this one was even further than that. And I asked a specialist like 1 year after I came to UK, and it was absolute garbage to hear about it. Like literally, my mind was blowing off, and that was actually the worst time to have your mind blown off because like you're in the verge of switching from place to place, and literally you have a lot of things happening. You have a lot of things to do, and it was just so overwhelming. And yeah, you guys probably wouldn't feel too much of a big momentum on that because I shortened everything that happened. You know, I shortened the history for you guys to understand. But you know, if you try to do the experience VR, virtual reality, it's hard, very hard, like literally. And yeah, things get really hard. And you know, since then I basically cut off all contact with the one. And I won't be going into like what gender was the one, what ideological background was the one. I won't go into that. But yeah, those things happened, and ever since then, ever since I left my homeworld, I never had contact with the one ever again. Yeah, you know, from for everything to nothing. And well, I mean, now it's all right. Like now, currently it's all right. I've got pretty much 80% of everything back. Yeah, this is why it goes to why this channel was developed. You know, a place of opportunity. You know, like a place where I can find purpose in. You know, somewhere to develop my personality and what I truly love, and where I can share my love equally for all of you. My 106, and which will be 1,000 within 2 years' time, I believe. And yes, that's where I can share my love with everybody. And hope that you guys will not have to suffer the same fate as I did. And not have to pull out your old soul and stuff in a new soul forcibly without properly going through the proper processes to actually do that. Which of course I was under extreme stress conditions to do that. If I didn't, I would be an absolute shithole today. If I did as I actually did in reality, then yeah, there's always the costume. Yes, that's the end of part 2 and the final part of the backstory. Hope you guys have found this valuable to the anniversary of 106 subscribers, and I hope you all have a nice day. Good day.